mate. How you doing, right? I'm a Marxist, you know. I'm happy to argue.
No engagement, yeah? No engagement.
No, I'm happy to debate. I'm happy to debate. I'm happy to debate.
Hang on a minute. Why don't you want him to
I'm
speak?
happy to debate.
Why don't you want him to speak, guys? Right.
That's my choice.
Can I just ask, what's the number one thing about Marxism that you either endorse or like?
Hang on, look. It's not your choice whether I debate with him. I'll go round and debate with him, yeah.
We'll go around the road because we don't want it.
This guy here doesn't talk. Hello, mate.
Right.
Hiya. If you've got questions for me, we go back and forth. I don't want too much of your time at all.
Oh, I don't mind.
Freedom of
I've
speech.
got time.
Freedom of speech. For all I know, you might be a patriot. You might have people who have served.
I'm a Marxist. I'm not a
Okay, fine, fair enough. But you might have a family, and we all just want to provide for our families. What's the number one thing, whether you talk about Karl Marx, Communist Manifesto, whatever, what's the number one thing that makes you a Marxist that you identify with or that you feel resonates with you? What drives you to be a Marxist?
I think the fundamental division in the world is based on class. I think the fundamental divisions in the world are based on class.
Yeah.
And that conflict between different social classes throughout history has shaped the world.
Yeah.
And that our world, I understand where you're coming from. You're coming from some kind of national background. Hey, he's all right. He's all right. So, no, that's nothing. I mean,
Can we just pause the interview for a second?
yeah.
Just watch your ears, mate. Watch your ears.
If you are attending the Marxist festival and you just saw the assault, how can you stand alongside that? Ask yourself the question, how can you stand alongside that? We are peaceful, we are always peaceful. How can you stand alongside that?
Okay,
the guy has just walked
so
off.
basically there's a protest at the
How can you
Marxism
stand
event
alongside that?
with nationalists, I presume, or anti-socialists, and I'm standing here promoting my walking tour. So they asked for debate. Now, there's quite a few people who didn't want a debate. Personally, I'm quite happy to debate with anyone, as most people know, so I don't have a problem debating. Unfortunately, I didn't bring my gimbal, so it's going to be a bit shaky because I only use my hand. So this guy with a megaphone was happy to debate, so I'm happy to debate. If he is. Are you a specific group, are you? Are you a specific?
Turning Point UK.
Oh, I've heard of them. Yeah, I don't know any, but someone told me about that you're far right or something like that. How would you identify yourself?
Right,
how would you self-identify?
Yeah, literally right-wing conservative.
Right-wing conservative.
So economically, we shift over to the middle because the modern world requires it as such.
What do you mean shift over to the middle?
state X, Y, Z, Thatcherite economics probably isn't appropriate for the modern world. Does that make sense?
So what sort of influence of the state should there be, in your opinion?
Ideally, I'd have a world-class first responder service. Ideally, battered housewives, single mothers. The NHS needs a lot of help. Public school, kiddie school. Yeah, that'll do. Economically.
Okay, that's
You've
a bit light. Anyway, we can elaborate.
But you've got to provide.
Economic credentials for the bullshit you studied economics.
Well, it doesn't matter. Let him, he can still
Well,
say what he thinks, whether he's got
he asked me where I
qualification
stand
or not.
economically, and
Whether he's got qualification or not.
I said I'm asking what he studied in order to make
I know,
these
but he doesn't have
judgments.
to have studied.
I don't have
anything.
to
I mean,
have studied.
I want to know, what's he backing it up with?
What do you mean backing up
he's
with? It's
given
my
an
opinion.
opinion.
Economic system.
He's given an opinion,
It's more
hasn't
than your opinion. It's got to be more than your opinion.
It might be wrong.
He
It
asked
might
me
be
for
wrong,
my
but it's an
opinion,
opinion.
and I gave
I know,
that.
but you're here trying to get everyone to share your
No,
opinion.
well, that's not
So
quite
what
right.
have
No,
you
I
got to
asked,
do?
I asked him
We're not
what
going to
his view
influence or
was.
recruit anyone here. We're just standing up to what we conceive to be evil.
What
Well, you
economic
can't say
system
we're
do we
not.
live in right now?
Marxism.
Why is Marxism evil?
My understanding is they want to abolish the family, defund the police.
Well, actually, if you look in
This is
the
what we're here to talk about.
if you look in the
Well,
com-
if you like to be reasonable,
if you look
we'll talk about it.
if you look in the Communist Manifesto, it explicitly states that there's. Well, I'm just trying to deal with that. To be fair, it explicitly states in the Communist Manifesto that they're accused of wanting to abolish the family, and that Marx rejects that, and he says the system of society we live under today, the ruling classes basically have abolished the family themselves because they don't practice monogamous family relationships. Instead of that, what they do is they have official wives and then prostitutions, and then they share
Say
their
ruling
wives.
classes who did monarchy.
No, well, the monarchy is really part of the but the ruling class.
bourgeoisie?
That's right. It means the owners of private capital, large-scale private
The
capital.
uppers.
So the Bill Gates, the Epsteins,
Yeah.
So,
Well,
so they don't believe in the family. That's what he said, and that's where the
We would
accusation
agree on
came.
that. And I've got my own views on Bill
So,
Gates.
so that's an agreement with Karl Marx, actually.
Yeah,
It's
well,
not a disagreement.
Well, I don't know whether I'm agreeing with you or Marx.
Well, that's what he.
It would
Well,
be
as I
dangerous
said,
for
you
me
could
to
check
agree with-
in the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah.
It explicitly states we are accused of standing for the abolition of the family, and then he responded in that way, and that's how the confusion came about.
Sure, so he's
What-
not
what
for
he-
the abolition of family.
No, what he did say, however, was that throughout history, the nature of the family has changed. For example, the word familia, the Latin word familia, from which our word comes, used to denote a slave owner and his slaves, and it didn't include his wife and his children. So family has changed throughout history. So what he said was the economic circumstances changed the conditions of the family. And he actually said the working classes, they can't really, in his day, Dickens' time, they couldn't really have that concept of family that was elevated as the type of family to be the ideal. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack there because obviously you're talking historically over hundreds of years. You're saying that I think you're saying family existed, but it's changed what it was. And
It
what
always
is.
changes, yeah.
The same with everything; it's morphing and etc. So if you
Right.
tell me that the way you've understood Marxism is that it's got nothing to do with the abolition of family, then obviously I'm pro-family, right? And I'm pro-patriarch as well. I think masculinity is a fantastic thing. So family means husband, mum and dad, doesn't it? You're talking about mum and dad procreating. So it sounds like we're both pro-family.
Well, you were asking, did Marx advocate that? So that's what I was trying to address.
I definitely want
my
your-
personal
I
opinion.
definitely want your-
My parents divorced. I'm a little bit sceptical about the idea of a permanent family unit being something that is an ideal. I think there are some circumstances where it's better to have collectively raising children. I know how difficult it is raising children. Single mums have a lot of difficulty raising children. And people who don't have a lot of money have difficulty raising children. So there are circumstances where you need some collective provision, and then there are circumstances where love relationships break down and where you fall in love with someone else.
Sure.
And then it's difficult to maintain,
Right.
a real relationship, a loving
You're
relationship.
describing real life. You're describing
Yeah,
real
exactly.
life problems.
Yeah.
So I kind of agree because I have to, because what you're saying is just factual kind of thing.
Right.
But in terms of putting my name to something, I believe in the patriarch. I believe in masculinity, femininity. I believe what the man brings. I believe what the female brings. Two of the most beautiful things ever. And so if you're saying that you're on board with that and the family with all of life's evils and nonsense,
What I presume
Then of
your
course I agree. So suffering is terrible.
what I presume the orientation of the discussion is that you're concerned about
Marxism Festival, how are
You're-
we today? How is everyone?
I presume you're concerned about the trans issue. I presume that's why you're mentioning that question, or not.
What I think is really important we discuss, and this is really all I've got to say about Marxism. The other week I'm on a Palestinian rally. I was working out what it was all about. And Socialist Worker Party 10, Socialist Worker Party 10. There was 3 or 4 there, right? The SWP, right? You've got your trade unionists, you've got your trans lobby, stand up to racism. So you've got race, immigration, money. So I've got a lot of time for old Labour, if that makes sense. Old Labour, 70s, 80s, whatever. I've got a lot of time for that, you know. It seems like they're going after every single. If you believe in a supranational, globalistic, new world order type of globalism, if you believe in that, I don't see how it can work without communism at state level. So once you've got sovereignty out of the way, you've got things like religion and sovereignty out of the way. I don't see how communism can exist at state level without those things out the way. And it seems like the SWP, it seems like they're going after every single minority group. If that makes sense, they really
there was
like the RMT guy, Mick, right? Again, he's now jumped on the drag story trans unit, and I can't work out. Sure, if I was against a bunch of old school hard Labour guys who were all about equality and about workers' rights and workers' pay, I can get behind that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But it seems to be every BLM.
Well, I do understand that.
And I've spoken to
there
loads
was
of
a
hard
there,
Labour
there
guys
has been
that have said that.
there has been a tendency in the left to try and latch on to every, like, what you could call liberal cause.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Trans
Liberal
rights,
cause.
gay rights, racial rights, and so
And
on.
it seems like there's not just
I
one
think-
or two,
I
it's
think
every
there-
single one of them.
Yes, I mean I do think there's truth to that. There was a theory, I don't know who invented the theory. I think it's called intersectionalism, where they basically say class is not so significant because you've got lots of other types of oppression, and those types of oppression should all be sort of tied together into some coalition.
And that's what I'd
that
love to talk to you about.
I personally, I'm not really of that point of view.
Sure.
Well,
then that would be the agreement point between you and I. Was filming
I think class is the central question, and the other ones are subordinate. That doesn't mean that I don't think that there is racial oppression, or there is oppression of someone who's a trans, or someone who's a whatever sexual identity. I think a lot of them do suffer some kind of.
Is that your end goal, to make the UK a Marxist country?
Sure. No, one second. So, first of all, I want to say thank you for your time. For starters, this is what it's all about. Hopefully, you believe in free speech.
I've been speaking at Speaker's Corner since 1985.
Fantastic. So,
I don't have a problem with free speech.
I will wish you good luck and God bless, and also, good day to you.
What's your name?
Nick.
See you later.
Thank you for your time.
Another time.
Or ponce off the taxpayer, that's probably more likely. So, you're right, mate, what's your name? Why are you here at the Marxism Festival? Fuck off. That's not very nice, is it, sir? So, why are you here at the Marxism Festival, Dave? Why are you a Marxist, Dave? Mr. Angry, why are you a Marxist? Excuse me, madam. You said you support Palestine. Madam. I think it's a madam. Madam. No? No answer? When's the next gay pride parade in Gaza, madam? No.
I would get up on the megaphone there, but I'm going to take a little break and have a cup of tea. I'll get some more of it a bit later on. Hope you enjoyed that. See you later.
Why do you follow a politics of envy? Why do you have a chip on your shoulder?
Quite
What
well.
went wrong in your life? Why